My name is Anna. I'm 32 years old, and until recently, I thought my life was nearly perfect. My husband Derek and I have been married for 10 years. We live, or used to, in a cozy two-story house on the outskirts of Denver, Colorado, raising our 5-year-old son Jacob. If you asked me 6 months ago about our marriage, I would have said it was wonderful. Derek was a caring man, a quiet problem solver who loved tinkering around the house and playing board games with our son. But everything changed because of one single unforgivable act. Here's how it all unraveled. A few months back, Derek got assigned to a long-term project at his engineering firm, which required occasional overnight travel. He'd drive out to construction sites or meet clients in neighboring counties. Meanwhile, I was home working part-time for a local bakery and handling most of the childcare. We had a pretty good routine. Mark, Derek's friend from college, came by often. He was the fun, outgoing type, always telling outrageous stories, the kind that made us roll our eyes but laugh anyway. Derek had known Mark for years and trusted him enough to leave him the house key whenever we needed help. If Derek was away and I had a problem with, say, the basement flooding or an electrical glitch, Mark would be the first to show up. I'd always liked Mark well enough, but it was never anything romantic. He was just the buddy. Sometimes, though, I'd find myself chatting with him a little longer than needed. He was boisterous where Derek was serious, like a fire next to water. A few times I noticed Mark looking at me in that way, but I brushed it off. He's just being playful, I told myself. One day in late spring, Derek left for a work trip, something about a new pipeline. He'd be gone for the weekend, leaving me and Jacob alone in the house. That Saturday, I realized the upstairs lights were flickering. When I tested the breaker, nothing improved, so I texted Mark, who had some experience with wiring. He agreed to swing by and take a look. It was evening when Mark showed up. Jacob was asleep in his bedroom. He had a long day at the park, so I ushered Mark to the attic's access ladder. I mentioned we might have a loose wire or something among the old insulation. Mark, smiling, climbing up. "You sure Derek's not here because this job's too tough for him?" Me, laughing nervously. "He's just out of town. I appreciate the help. You know me. I can't fix a light bulb without messing it up." We got to the attic. It was cramped, dusty, dimly lit by a single overhead bulb. Mark rummaged among the beams, checking cables. I stood close, holding a flashlight. The mood was oddly tense, the dust swirling around us. At one point, Mark yanked a loose piece of insulation and a small flurry of debris fell. I jumped back, we both laughed. Mark, softly, "Man, this place is ancient. Didn't Derek want to renovate at some point?" Me, "He talked about it. But, we never found the time or money." Then he turned to me, grin fading. Everything got too quiet. We were inches apart. My heart hammered. I had no idea why I felt that wave of adrenaline, but Mark's eyes locked on mine, and without conscious thought, I leaned in. It was as if an invisible line got crossed. We kissed. A short, tentative kiss that instantly brought guilt surging through me. We pulled apart, gasping. Me, whispering, "Mark, we shouldn't." Mark, equally breathless. "I know. God, Anna, hi, sorry." But a spark had ignited. In a rush of stupidity or hormones or whatever, we ended up in each other's arms, making love right there on the attic's dusty plywood floor. I can barely explain what overcame me. Maybe the weeks of Derek's absence, feeling lonely, or the excitement of Mark's attention. By the time we finished, we were both trembling, half from the cold, half from fear of what we'd done. He murmured apologies. I mumbled I was sorry too. We climbed down quietly, like thieves in the night. Jacob still slept, clueless. Mark gave me a final haunted look and left. I sank onto the living room couch, tears on my cheeks, asking myself, what have I done? For the next few days, I was a wreck. Mark texted once, asking how I felt. I didn't respond. Derek returned that Wednesday, cheerful from a successful job trip. I forced a smile. The guilt nearly suffocated me. But ironically, we'd both forgotten one crucial detail. Derek had installed a small motion-activated camera in the attic last year to check for mice. I never realized he'd left it operational. So guess what? That tiny camera recorded more than enough to see Mark and me entwined, though not in perfect detail. Still, the truth was plain as day. Derek discovered the footage the following week. I remember him coming downstairs, pale-faced, his phone clutched in his hand. "Derek," voice trembling, "Anna, do you have something to tell me? Something about the attic?" My stomach dropped. He showed me the video. I froze. A wave of shame and terror hit me so hard I thought I'd faint. He stared at me, heartbreak in his eyes. Me, barely audible. Derek, I'm sorry. It just happened once, I swear." Derek, bitter laugh. "Once? God, Anna, I never thought you'd be capable of this." He turned on his heel and stormed off. For 3 days we hardly spoke. On the 4th day, he said he was filing for divorce. I begged him to reconsider, told him I still loved him, that it was a one-time lapse. He just looked at me like I was a stranger. Derek, you slept with my best friend. In our house. Under our son's nose. It's done. I couldn't argue. The evidence was literal and no excuse could justify it. He insisted he wanted me out of his life, but for Jacob's sake, we agreed I'd stay in the house until the divorce settled. He moved into our guest room and eventually to an apartment, visiting Jacob on weekends. Over the next months, we hammered out the divorce terms. Everyone found out of the attic betrayal. Mark fled town, ashamed. Our mutual friends were horrified. Some cut me off, others tried to remain neutral. My parents were devastated. Jacob was confused, but Derek and I kept details minimal, blaming adult problems. The final hearing was swift. We ended up sharing custody of Jacob. The house was in my name, ironically. Derek had no interest in fighting for it, wanting only to escape the memories. As the dust settled, I realized the magnitude of what I'd done. My single impulsive act shattered years of marriage. Derek's expression, when he looked at me in utter disillusion, still haunts my dreams. Some nights I wake up in tears, half expecting him to be next to me, telling me it was all a nightmare. But it's real. I tried calling Mark once to demand an explanation of why he'd let it happen, but the conversation never happened. He didn't pick up. The truth is, it wasn't just Mark's fault. I was there. I initiated that insane moment. Part of me hates him. A part of me knows my own responsibility is bigger. So here I am, living alone in the home we once shared, raising our son with a custody schedule. Derek rarely looks at me when he picks up Jacob. He's polite but distant. I see the heartbreak in his eyes sometimes, and it kills me that I caused it. He might eventually move on. Maybe find someone who'll never cheat. Would I do anything to turn back time to erase that moment on the attic floor and heartbeat? But regrets can't reverse the past. I'm left to live with the consequences. Our marriage is finished, my husband is gone, and I'm the one to blame. I share this in the hope that maybe someone else might see how a brief moment of weakness can destroy something beautiful. I never thought I was the type to cheat, never once believed I'd betray the father of my child, yet I did. So that's my story from my own perspective. It's not a redemption tale. It ends in a cold, painful divorce. Some people say time heals, but this wound feels raw. Maybe one day I'll forgive myself, but I doubt I'll ever forget how I climbed up to that dusty attic with Mark and came down a different woman, shattering a marriage that once meant everything to me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for new stories every day.